I'm going to be talking about All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I wasn't sure how I was going to talk about this book. It gave me a lot of introspection, which was kind of bringing up a lot of memories from like when I was growing up that I hadn't really thought about. Like just seeing, like reading this book and seeing somebody else had like a similar experience. We didn't have necessarily the same experience, but we had a lot of similar experiences. We did things similarly as children that expressed who we were as children. And because people around us didn't understand, they kind of shamed us and guilted us and abused us into repressing ourselves and just not being our full selves. And now reading this book has me doing a lot of introspection, a lot of trying to get in touch with who I was as a child. And so much of that is embodied in this book where George is taking us through his life so far, and he's talking about like what it was like to be a child, who he really was and how he expressed himself, how he thought of himself, and then how that was, kind of pushed back, and how as he just got older he kind of pushed back against that. This is just helping me do a lot of work for my own self, like just own introspection. This book, I see it as required reading for a lot of queer teens. Once you're like at 12, 13, you are very aware of who you are when it comes to your identity, when it comes to sexuality and gender identity. I think this is a really powerful book, especially for queer teens of color and especially for Black queer teens. It's required reading for everybody. It'll help people that aren't queer to understand what it means to be queer. I've seen criticism where it's seen that the writing is very much telling. It's not too prosy, I guess, would be the best description. I don't know. It's just like I've heard criticism that the writing is a little too simplistic, and I don't mind that. But then again, that's just me. I like prose, but I like my prose to be as clean and simple and beautiful as possible. Don't flourish too much, and he just kind of kept it as honest and as real as possible, but he did it with a delicacy that was necessary, where I'm gonna keep it real with you, but at the same time, I'm gonna do it in a way that doesn't come across too harsh. Like he tackles some stuff in this book that I was just kind of like, should you be telling people this? Should you be telling kids this? Should not even just so much kids this, but should you just be this honest with this? Appreciate him for being so candid and sharing information that I think maybe older generations would have said, no, we can't say that. That's not okay. That's kind of inappropriate. I'm gonna tell you this straight up. I wanted to read books that were considerably very adult at a teenage age, because I just was more curious about just like these more adult things. Like that's why we was watching like Cinemax and HBO in the middle of the night, and we know what pimps up hoes down, and we know what real sex with the male female strip club is about, like because we were curious about these things, because these are things that were kind of seen as taboo and like blocked off to us. If people were just a lot more open and honest, just keeping it honest with kids and teenagers about a lot of these things, but keep it very, very technical and teaching that they will understand. They will understand the good side and they will understand the bad side, and they can make decisions out of that instead of like saying this is not okay. And because that's my whole thing in reading this book, it made me think about how much people repressing others in society. I feel like it causes a lot of sexual dysfunction, and it causes a lot of just societal dysfunction. You're creating more dysfunction than you're actually creating a better, more functioning society. I say all this to say that this book tapped into a lot of vulnerability for me, a lot of things that I need to tackle. It's just made me so much more introspective, and I definitely feel like a lot of more people would need to read this. This is required reading as far as I'm concerned. It's required reading for a lot of people, for teenagers, for adults, for straight, for LGBTQIA plus people. There are moments there that connect to different people. It probably isn't going to cover everybody or touch everybody, but at the end of the day, I feel like so many people could read this, be inspired by it, and even write their own stories about their experiences that'll touch even more people. I've already said so much, and I will just share a few of what I really liked, what really touched me. This first quote really just hit for me. This is something that I've thought about. In writing stories, I want to write stories that are more inclusive, but even more, I want to write stories that are kind of like breaking our norms of gender binary and the ideas of what it means to be LGBTQIA and to be straight and all that stuff. Just like push back on some of that, and like I want to write those stories. And this moment kind of really tapped into what I want to go for, what I'm trying to go for, and I appreciated George for writing this. It is page 3. I often wonder what this world would look like if people were simply told, you are having a baby with a penis or a vagina or other genitalia. Look up intersex if you're confused about other. What if parents were also given instructions to nurture their baby by paying attention to what the child naturally gravitates towards and to simply feed those interests? What if parents let their child explore their own gender instead of pushing them down one of the only 2 roads society tells us exists? George did that. George stayed doing that. Like, I'm telling you, that's why there's so many tabs. George does that. Like, I stand George. Like, I'm serious. Like, I already was like, I really already enjoyed George M. Johnson on The Grapevine and him tweeting and stuff like that. But this book, and he's about to write another book. I'm just waiting for him to snatch my wig on the next book. Like, I'm serious. Like, he really is out here trying to like separate me from my wig and just like dissolve the wig glue and just like easily like slip it off my skin, like just slip it off my hair, like just slip it like off my head. Like, I don't have to. Okay, so next quote. This book is an exploration of 2 of my identities, black and queer, and how I've become aware of their intersections within myself and in society. How I've learned that neither of these identities can be contained within a simple box, and that I enter the room as both of them despite the spaces and environments I must navigate. In the white community, I am seen as a black man first, but that doesn't negate the queer identity that will still face discrimination. In the black community, where I more often find myself, it is not the black male identity that gets questioned immediately. It is that intersection with queerness that is used to reduce my blackness and the overall image of black men. Words, honey, words. And these are just like a few. You're not about to get all of the clips that I went in here with, but George did that. He's just doing that. This quote really resonated with me so much because I was like, how were you and I having like such a similar experience as children? But that is to tell you how valid LGBTQIA plus identities are, that so many of us, we can be miles apart, so different from each other. And we have such similar experiences that validate our queer identities. And this just exemplified it here for me, this entire moment. I used to dream a lot as a little boy, but in my daydreams, I was always a girl. I would daydream about having long hair and wearing dresses. And looking back, it wasn't because I thought I was in the wrong body, but because of how I acted more girly. I thought a girl was the only thing I could be. Because let me tell you, around like puberty, maybe 10, 11, 12, around that time, I had this thought in my head that, oh, maybe I was kind of in the wrong body and my body would transform. Like, by puberty, it would just transform. And it would become this new, it would actually show who I really was. It would show that, yes, I was really a girl, and everybody saying that like, oh, you're so girly, or you're so all these things. They would just realize that, oh yeah, oh, that's who you always really were. Okay, so now you're accepted. And that never happened. It was just realizing that this is the body that I have, or for me personally, this is the body that I have, and this is what I was born to be. How I express myself, like the femininity that I have, that's just how I express it through this male body. Like, I feel seen. And I honestly feel like for a lot of teenagers reading this book, they will feel seen. Whether they are trans or they are gay or lesbian or bisexual, you will feel seen in some way, because there are so many moments where he talks about his trans cousin, and he talks about his brother who's gay, who is gay. He talks about all these different people that show all these different identities. All Boys Aren't Blue, amazing book, an amazing read by George M. Johnson. It is required reading as far as I'm concerned. I am with Jesse on this. Shout out to Jesse for like really talking this book up. Like, I already wanted to read it. I may actually need to go back and reread just to connect to anything else that I may have missed, and just to experience a lot of what this book had to offer. It had so many great moments from, like Jesse said, there were moments of blackness, of family, of some queerness, of like black college life, black fraternity, black sorority life. Like, it's just so much. It is just very, very intrinsically black, and it's also very intrinsically black and queer. I love it. I love this book, and I definitely required reading for everyone. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And I'm out this bitch like the fuck.